Hi, my name is Kel and I'm a therapist and educator with a special interest in eating disorders. Come on in, take a seat, and if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe for bite-sized content across the mental health and eating disorder spectrum. With today's video, I wanted to kickstart 2022 with a therapist's thoughts video. If you haven't seen one of these before, I previously made a video like this, a bit more of a chatty and relaxed video sharing some of my thoughts, feelings and opinions on a particular topic. The previous video was about my experience of being a therapist and using social media. I'll put a link for that video up here. But in today's video, I wanted to take some time to reflect a little on working throughout the pandemic and maybe some of the lessons I've taken from 2021 and indeed the year before that as well, and some thoughts and hopes perhaps that I have for this, my work, and also for me in the coming year as well. I recently reshared a post from somebody on my Instagram account. My Instagram handle, if you're not already following me over there, is @kel_mhb. And the post that I reshared was talking about how we as therapists have been through something really unprecedented in our lifetime and in the lifetime of anybody living today as professionals, in so much as we've been supporting people coping with, dealing with the pandemic and the impacts of isolation and all that type of stuff that's been going on globally for this last 2 years now. And we've been doing that while also going through that same experience ourselves. And in many respects, that's very different than how we've ever worked before, because in 99.9% of the instances, at least in my personal experience when I'm working with clients, I'm not going through something that my client is going through at exactly the same moment in time. Even if me and a client have some experiences that are similar, the chances are that I have had the opportunity to reflect on that, to do some self-development, perhaps even to go to therapy and to make sense of how I feel about it before I'm having those conversations with clients. And having the opportunity to work it through myself gives me the space to be most available to my client in what it is that they're experiencing. But throughout the pandemic, we've literally all globally been going through this at exactly the same time. And that is odd to say the least, in so much as I might be dealing with my own feelings about this global trauma that we're going through, or how I feel about COVID or isolation, at exactly the same moment as the client that I'm working with. Paint that like it's a bad thing, because in all honesty, it's just the reality of the situation that we've found ourselves in this last couple of years. There is nothing that we as therapists could have done differently to mean that we weren't going through this experience at the same time as our clients. But I guess I'm reflecting on the fact that I recognize that it's been different and that it's been hard. And I also offer supervision, and I've increasingly, as this past 2 years has gone by, had conversations with my supervisees who've said, I feel like this about it and my client feels really different, or I feel exactly the same way as my client, and we're making sense of our own feelings at exactly the same time as everybody else. And that can feel a bit muddled and confusing sometimes. It can feel a bit harder to separate out what is my client's experience from what is my experience. And at least for me personally, that hasn't impacted me in sessions with clients. I'm able to stay in the frame of what it is that my client's talking about. But I've certainly had many different types of conversations with many people feeling different ways about the pandemic, and almost felt more confused myself as a result of that. Felt, how do I feel about this? How am I going to make sense of what it is that we're experiencing? This global trauma is something that we're probably going to see potentially for years to come in the work that we do. In fact, it's perhaps a bit of a representation of how much of a geek I am for the work that I do and how much I love the work that I do. But my Christmas gift to myself was literally half a dozen trauma-related textbooks to kind of think about this in a more solid, directed way, in recognition and knowing that these will be conversations and we will continue to see the impacts of this as time goes on. I guess I'm also recognizing to myself as I'm talking about this right now that it isn't just the trauma of the reality of the COVID-19 virus that we've been dealing with, but it's also the trauma of the way our countries have dealt with it and how that's impacted on us. And I guess when I say that, what I'm really thinking about is the isolation. I personally feel really privileged and lucky to have been able to share in so many people's journeys throughout this last couple of years. And in some ways, that's actually directly helped me feel less isolated, because I was having regular conversations with people in a variety of different settings and ways. So I was talking to my own family and my friends, and I was talking to clients, and I was still training, just all online. And I'm aware that many people will literally have been sent home from work as their countries were locked down, and have had that focus of work and that connection with colleagues and clients taken away from them. So I recognize that I maybe felt less isolated than a lot of people did. And I am quite an introvert anyway, so I don't need a huge amount of kind of social interaction. But there were absolutely times in this last couple of years where I thought, gosh, it's been, weeks or months and months and months as time went by since I've been in certain settings or been with people that I care deeply about. And it really has been an opportunity for me to think about and pay attention to what it is that's important to me. And as most things in life, I think there is some good and there is some bad to come out of this experience of the last couple of years. And I think that it's been challenging at times to try and see the good, but part of the good for me has been the opportunity to stop and think about, stop and notice, what is it that's really important to me. I am a little bit of a workaholic, and it's given me the space to recognize that I really value some of the people in my life that I'm close to, and I want to intentionally, going forward, make sure that I make time for those people in my life. I do also want to hit the ground running as things move back to something that represents a bit more normal in terms of my work, and I've got some great plans for the coming years. But I also want to use this learning opportunity of less contact with people that I care about to remind me that actually my social relationships are important to me, and they're part of our well-being, so just as much as eating well, sleeping well, and moving your body. And as an introvert, I think sometimes in the past I've tended personally to overlook the importance of that in my life. But I'm trying now, moving forward, to seek more balance in my life. And that feels like an interesting thing for me to say out loud, because if any of you have been on any of my training events, I often talk about how recovery from an eating disorder is about balance, and working as a therapist is about navigating the balance in people's lives, or the lack of balance in people's lives. And I'm now recognizing that, in respect to the fact that for me work is something that I love and something that I'm really passionate about, that probably in the few years before the pandemic, my life has sometimes lacked that balance. And it's also lacked balance of getting outside a little bit more. And I would love to hear from you, if you're watching this video right now, if you have any reflections on how perhaps in a positive way the pandemic or the isolation, the space that you've had, has contributed to you making some healthy, positive, self-affirming decisions. Maybe your life looks a little bit different now to what it did just before the pandemic, and you're grateful for that. I know a big change that it's almost been in place for 2 years but feels like it's now happening for me, is that the clinic that I've been working in for almost the last 10 years is actually closing as a result of the pandemic. And I have, of course, been working online the entire of the pandemic, so working online isn't new to me, but that has led me to decide that I'm going to continue to stay working online. I want to figure out how to use YouTube as a way to reach more people with education, and I like that working online as a therapist means that I can meet people and work with people that aren't just within travelling distance of the clinic that I was working with. And when I marry that with this reflection on my own well-being, both as being a therapist and just in recognizing the need for balance that I would encourage my clients to seek, I'm also thinking about moving to somewhere that better suits the lifestyle that I want to live. So I'd really love, literally in the comments, and you're also welcome to direct message me, email me if you don't want to share it publicly in the comments. I'd love to hear if there's been something positive like that to come out of the pandemic for you. It feels like there's a lot that I could say on this topic, but it also feels like to some degree that, at least for me, I'm ready to move on, and I don't want to dwell too much on the impact of what has been COVID-19 and the pandemic, but that I want to embrace it and make these positive steps forward using the knowledge that I've garnished. And I hope that you're able to allow yourself to do that too. And if you're watching this video and the pandemic has impacted you in a far more negative way than I have been fortunate enough to experience, please do not feel that I'm trying to downplay that in any way. I'm just sharing today some of my thoughts and my feelings as a result of this. Coming as we go forward, I'm going to be continuing to create YouTube videos, but perhaps at a little bit less of a frequency than I was in the beginning of the channel over the last 3 months, because I'm trying to seek this balance in life. But there will be other things coming from me by the spring. So I'm working on some secret projects, and I'm working on getting the training events back to being all fully running, but probably, at least for the time being, continuing to be primarily, if not entirely, online. I would love to hear what some of your hopes and ideas and priorities might be for the coming year, and as I said before, whether or not that's significantly changed because of the life that we've been living for the last couple of years. So I'm going to be back with another video soon, getting back to the eating disorder education. And until next time, be kind, be curious, be yourself.